This is pork belly wraps. Maybe it's Asian pork belly wraps. Maybe it's just wraps with pork in it. There's lots of Asian flavours in the sauce for this pork, so maybe it is Asian, but this is my own recipe that I made, so I hope you enjoy it and give it a go yourself. I used lots of vegetables in this recipe. I used lettuce, spring onion, carrot, coriander, radish, shiitake mushrooms, but it's all up to you what you want to use and what you want to put in your wraps. I definitely recommend radish and shiitake mushrooms. They're very awesome flavours. The pork I use is pork belly from Back and Save. I'm using 2 cuts today. One I'll be doing in the pressure cooker and one in the oven. This is to show you 2 different methods of cooking. I love the pressure cooker, but we don't all have those. The pork that I got from the butcher today has got bone in, which is really frustrating, but I'll just cut it out after it's cooked. There, you can see the ribs sliding underneath. It's a bit annoying. I mean, you don't want to munch into those really, eh? If you are going to be cooking the pork in the oven, it's really important to score the top of the fat. The fat won't get crispy cooking at this method for the wraps because it's not. We're not doing crackling today. Maybe I'll do a recipe for that another time. But score the top and pop it into a baking dish. The sauces we're going to be using today for the pork marinade are hoisin, sriracha, rice wine vinegar, sweet chili sauce, soy sauce. The one I've got on hand is gluten-free, but you just use whatever you got at home. We're going to be using 4 cloves of garlic. Seems like a lot, but I love garlic. And a thumb-sized piece of ginger. And we will also be using the top of the spring onion, the flimsy part that you normally chuck away. We're going to be cutting a few of those off and chucking them in with the pork. Also in the pork we're going to be using some miso paste and a bit of white wine. Whatever you've got on hand is good. Once you've mixed up the quantities that should be on the screen, pour that around the pork, making sure to get in all the nooks and crannies underneath the pork as well. It's really good. This is really weird to film a video with a voiceover and a nice camera and all that sort of stuff, but I really want to share my love of food, I guess. That sounds so cheesy. For my dairy-free friends out there, the only thing I would say you might need to double check for this recipe is the hoisin sauce. I don't think that has dairy in it, but I wouldn't outright say and get you all sick. For people who are gluten-free, ditch the tortilla wrap and go for the lettuce wrap. That'll be really good for you. Friends doing keto, this is a good recipe for you as well. Watch the sauces, they've got a bit of sugar in them, but it should be a really good recipe for you. You can chunk out on the vegetables as well. Friends who are vegan or vegetarian, maybe just don't be vegan or vegetarian and maybe you should eat the meat. No, I'm not going to say that. Enjoy this recipe with the shiitake mushrooms instead of the pork. Maybe. Now chuck your pork in the oven at 160, just on a general bake setting. Wipe down the top of your fat and chuck some salt on it. That'll keep it nice and dry. It's not, as I said before, it's not going to turn into crackling, but it'll help render the fat down a bit more if it's dry. And it should be in the oven for about 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, depending on how fast your oven is and how big of a pork belly cut you've got. It's not going to be fully cooked through, but that's okay because we're going to slice them down and chuck them in the pan. If you're doing pressure cooker, on low for an hour should do the trick. I would do it a little bit less than that. Mine came out really beautifully cooked, but because we want to slice them down and chuck them in the pan, you want it a little bit less cooked than that. Yes. Here's a fun bonus. We're doing pickled radish and carrot. I love this. It adds such a nice zing to the wraps. I'm just going to grate my carrots and make everything really finely chopped. If you've got a mandolin at home, do use that. That's amazing. It'll save you so much time. They're really, really amazing kitchen tools. Now watch me not chop my fingers off with the mandolin. This is an awesome tool for also doing potatoes and lots of other fun things like that. Get a really, really thinly sliced vegetable. For the radish, just pop the end off it like that. That'll be really easy. They have the awesome little sprouts of green that you can hold on to while you're chopping them with your mandolin. If you don't have a mandolin, just use a knife like a normal person. And then you're going to pile them up into a little radish tower and slice them into lovely little strips. Do the same with the carrot, just until you get enough for however much pickled radish you want to do. When you pickle them, they do shrink a lot in size, and I'm going to add a bit of onion in there as well. Onion adds lots of lovely flavour. Our vegetables, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of salt, and you're going to rub that into them really nicely, like you're massaging the radishes. That's pretty fun, isn't it? Because of science, the water is attracted to salt and the water is drawn out of the vegetables, and it makes them really flimsy and lovely and soft. You're going to notice a bit of water at the bottom of your bowl soon, and you can just pour that out. Then you're going to drain your vegetables and strain them so you get all of the salt out of them, get rid of the water at the bottom of the bowl, make them nice and fresh again. Then you're going to combine 2 tablespoons of sugar whatever sugar you've got. I used brown sugar, but it doesn't really matter, with 4 tablespoons of vinegar. And this is going to add the sweetness and the sourness that we expect from a pickle. Once you pour that in, just let them sit there, give them a toss around every now and then. You can make this ahead of time and let them sit in it, but it should taste like a pickle quite soon after you pour this liquid in. Look at that lovely piece of pork. That looks awesome. Take the pork out of your pan and keep the marinade. All of those lovely juices we're going to turn into a sauce for our wraps. When slicing it, there are bones in the bottom of mine. There might not be in yours, but I have to remove mine after I slice them. Little bits of cartilage and stuff. My pork looks a little bit pink, and yours might do too, but we're going to chuck them in the pan and sear them up to get a nice colour and caramelization on them. It'll be really, really yummy. Now for that lovely juice that we're going to turn into a sauce, chuck it on the pan and reduce it. Take out all the little spring onion bits. You can leave the garlic and the ginger in there to get a bit more flavour out of them, but it's probably, you could remove them if you want to by now. Reduce it until it's quite thick and until it tastes how you want it. Now I've chopped up my lovely shiitake mushrooms. If you don't have shiitake and you really like mushrooms, just use any. If you don't like mushrooms, don't do them. You could have them fresh, but I'm going to do mine in the lovely juices that we have out of the pork. I chop them up just into small little strips, and I'm adding them to the pan with leftover juices in it. Just cook your mushrooms until they're nice and soft and have absorbed a bit of the lovely flavours we've put around them. To the pan, you're going to add the pork to a hot pan and leave it in there till it's got some colour in it. It depends on how thick you made your slices. You don't want it too cooked, else it'll get a bit hard. You want to keep it nice and juicy. I have our sauce that we made. I've got some fresh radish, cucumber, carrot and extras, and then I've got our shiitake mushrooms, some of our pickles, some lettuce, and a huge heaping bowl of coriander, because that's one of my favourite things to add to everything. Wow, now here's the fun part, assembling. So you've got some lettuce leaves, a beautiful piece of pork, some of our lovely sauce, and just add what you want to it, make it your own. If you don't like radish, don't use radish. If you really like carrots, put lots of carrots in, it's all up to you. I think those look super yummy. I hope that you enjoyed this video and make this at some point in the future. Give it a go. Wow, they look really good. I added a bunch of hot sauce to mine, and it tasted really good, and a lot of coriander as well. I think there's goals. Wow, they look awesome. These would be super good to bring to a picnic. They could be easy to pack in your work lunchbox. Make the pork the night before and chuck it together in the morning. Could be a good idea. I know you'd have lots of new friends if you brought these to a party. That would be a very good idea. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a really good day.